Hello, everyone. My name is Dermot, and you are back for the latest edition of the Arbury Road podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about local elections that have recently been held in Croatia. Now, to speak about this topic with me, I'm pleased to introduce Kaja Pavlinić. Hello, Kaja. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. So,
Great.
Kaja is president of a non-profit sustainable development forum Green Window in Zagreb, and Kaja is also the vice president of the Croatian Youth Network. So we're going to focus in on the election results from Croatia. We're going to focus heavily on Zagreb, and we're going to talk a bit about youth policy and the next generation of people coming up in Croatia in general. How does that sound, Kaja?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get down to it. So, do you want to give us a little bit of information about the political landscape in Croatia in general, and then we can dive into the results of the elections?
Sure. So as I've told before, I'm not really an expert on the topic, but you could say I am following the political situation in Croatia quite a lot since I've been working in the field of youth work for the past 7 years. But I'm also an entrepreneur, so there's a lot of politics related to that. So this is why I basically had to follow everything. For on the national level. Things have been quite consistent for the past few years. Our government is basically center right. And since last year, our president is center left. It's Zoran Milanovic from Social Democratic Party. And also the Croatian Democratic Party is basically in the government. What has been quite dynamic was the situation on the level of the city of Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, where there has been the same mayor for the past 20 years. It was Milan Bandic, and basically he's quite known for a lot of cases of corruption, nepotism, and basically Zagreb went into a lot of debt because of him. Okay. Recently, he passed away unexpectedly, and this caused a lot of stirred conversations, but also changed the dynamic of the elections that were supposed to happen this year, because he was, of course, one of the main candidates for the mayoral election. And his main candidate who wanted to challenge him was Tomislav Tomaszewicz from the green option that's called Možemo, or translated We Can. So basically this platform started as an activist platform and kind of evolved into a political party. It's I would say, the most powerful green party in Croatia right now. Before that, we had Orah, which was quite powerful a few years ago. However, since then, they lost a lot of their capacities and a lot of their power. So now We Can, or Možemo, is basically the most powerful option for everybody who wants to vote green and who supports sustainable development and similar policies. So then Tomislav Tomaszewicz from this party actually won the first round of the mayoral election. It was a very wide margin of 46% of the votes. And, keep in mind that there has been a lot of candidates in the first round. And in the second round of the elections, he won by a powerful 200,000 votes. It's around 70% of total votes. So now he has been chosen as the mayor of Zagreb, which is making me really happy, but also a lot of other citizens, since this is a big change in the way Zagreb is being led. But of course, since Zagreb is the capital, it kind of influences the direction in which the whole Croatia is kind of going.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a great result in Zagreb, and I believe there was a similar campaign in Split. Now, I think in Split, in the end, the Conservatives won. Am I correct in saying that?
But so for the city of Split, it was actually a central liberal party which won, which was also a turn. So we actually have a new mayor, Ivica Puljak. He's actually a really great scientist, and he is also leaning towards some green policies, some liberal policies, but it also steered quite a change in Split. So actually, these local elections have been very significant because in both Zagreb and Split, the biggest cities in Croatia, there has been a big change, which actually showed that citizens wanted to choose something new. They leaned towards new options, and they wanted to have somebody who's more progressive, who's more green, who takes care about other topics than what has been in the political discourse for the past few years.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant to see things moving in a new direction, and as you said, a progressive one. So before we focus in on Zagreb and a little bit on Split, how did the elections go overall? The Conservatives technically they won, but they lost. Would that be correct in saying?
Yeah, well, depends on how you frame it. So, depends because there's a lot of counties and a lot of cities in Croatia, and you can basically take over the majority in a quantitative way. But when you look at the budgets and the yearly budgets of certain regions, we can definitely say that the right wing has suffered, and conservative parties have suffered quite a loss, just because they have practically won the east of Croatia, which is one of the poorest areas in Croatia. East is of course traditionally more conservative, but the budget is not there. So the majority of the budget is Zagreb, Split, Rijeka, all the cities where they're not in charge anymore. So they are saying it's still a huge win for them, but when you take a look at the numbers, you can see that they're actually losing power. And what's quite interesting is that Možemo, We Can party has become now the third most powerful political option, while the Social Democrats are actually losing the power. So in the upcoming few years, there could even be some change where, Croatian Democratic Party and the Social Democrat Party have been the most powerful ones since the independence of Croatia, and now we could get a new player in the first two. So this is something that could be potentially very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's very exciting, if nothing else, to see new parties emerging and doing well. And I also see from the results here that independents hold a lot of power in Croatia. After the Conservatives, they have the most seats in terms of current sitting mayors, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's mostly because there has been so much different talks about corruption cases and nepotism cases, and a lot of affairs and scandals in the past few years in the media, where people just wanted to vote for somebody who's either independent or belongs to the new parties. We saw quite a significant decrease in the power of the parties that have been the most popular ones for the past few years. So this is definitely a stir that has been happening. I'm actually pretty glad that more independent and especially more young people are getting the opportunities to lead the counties and the cities. And I always say that we're not really sure if that's going to work out well, even for Zagreb, but I'm definitely glad that they got the opportunity because they deserved it. So I think we should definitely support that, but also keep them very accountable for their actions, especially for the bigger cities like Zagreb and Split.
Oh, of course. I mean, accountability, regardless of party lines or being independent or not, is completely expected. But it is always nice to see independents perform well, because they traditionally don't have the money to campaign so much. They don't have the famous political friends that the big parties can rely on.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you look at for example, the donations for Tomašević's election. You could see that he has been mostly funded by hundreds of individual donors, where usually you see big companies or even NGOs with a lot of budget in their donations list. And you can see that Tomašević actually had a lot of small donors from 100 euros, 50 euros. So everyone gave what they were able to. But this has been very nice to see that he's actually funded by the community and not by strong organizations or corporations.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's focus in a bit on Tomaszewicz then and
Mhm.
Zagreb in general, because it sounds like it was an interesting campaign because it seems
Mhm.
like two very different prominent candidates. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say where on one hand in the second round you had a right-wing candidate, Miroslav Škoro, who's actually a singer in
Right? Yeah.
Croatia. Yeah, he never had any connections with politics like very directly. He was a member of certain parties, but he was never really expressing this political behavior before and intentions. And then you have Tomaszewicz, who is, an activist, a political scientist, and he has been very involved into the community from the early age. So the campaign was very interesting. First round, I think it was not as interesting because there were more candidates.
Mhm.
But for the second round, basically the only argument and the only way that the right wing candidate would, be visible is to run the campaign with fake news. So this was what was happening a lot. For the first time since the independence, we actually had a campaign that's very similar to actually Donald Trump ones. So, we had so many fake news, so many false information, disinformation, and it was really a challenge to filter it all because there was a lot of news outlets who were funded to, run this kind of articles. Even you mentioned that I'm the part of the Croatian Youth Network. So
Mhm.
Tomislav Tomašević was in the governing body of the Croatian Youth Network as well a few years ago. So there was this article which I came across where it says like we all got, like everybody who was involved with the Croatian Youth Network actually got rich through the Croatian Youth Network, and that he was able to fund his apartment because he was active in that network. So there has been so many crazy lies and disinformation. It was really hard to track it all. Yeah, it was basically the first campaign of such sort in Croatia, and that was really surprising. But honestly, I think it gave Tomašević a lot more power because, like, I think all of the at least reasonable ones voted for him or stayed at home, where kind of Miroslav Škoro, the right wing candidate, he kind of kept only the really, really crazy ones.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a brilliant sign for the future that there was that kind of campaign and enough people didn't fall for it.
Mm-hmm,
You know what
mm-hmm.
I mean? Because this was another thing I wanted to ask you when I was reading up about Shkoro. Like it's very like Trump, the campaign, from
Yeah.
what I can see. But it's also it's like Zelensky in Ukraine as well.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on this idea of celebrity politics? Because they're always right-wing populists when they do get involved as well.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah,
think?
it's a very strange phenomena, because
Yeah.
when Donald Trump announced he's going to, be a candidate for the president of the United States, nobody really thought that he had any chance because, he's a celebrity.
Yeah.
And we saw that comes true. And I was very worried that it will be the same for Miroslav Škoro, the right-wing candidate in our local elections. And it was really, I would say, even scary to see how what was his approach, and especially since he is involved in a lot of scandals. So it was really funny to see, just like as for Trump, to see what is his background, what is his history, and then what is he trying to portray about the other candidate. And honestly, I feel like we don't have enough capacity yet to handle such campaigns. I think we could do that now because we only had, two people and only one was spreading false information. But, try to imagine many candidates do that at the same time. So you have like the local elections and you have the same situation in Zagreb, Split, any other bigger city in Croatia. I'm not really sure we have enough capacities. We only have a few fact-checking websites where people can go to, and these are not well known outside of our circles of people who like to be informed. And yeah, especially now during the pandemic, where false information gets spread out anywhere, even without any political events. It has been very hard to keep that under control. But for the approach, it's something that surprisingly sticked to young people really well, which was really interesting for me because I thought, only older people could, trust such campaigns. But some young people also caught up. So this was like very interesting for me to see during these elections.
Well, let's go in a bit deeper then when we talk about young people in Croatia, because Croatia only joined the European Union back in 2013, the final member to join. So what's the feeling amongst young people in Croatia now? Because they're the first generation, I guess, growing up as EU citizens. Like, are they generally pro-Europe?
Yeah, it's very interesting to follow the development of, young people during and after we entered the EU. And I am very lucky to say that actually most of the young people are supportive of the European Union and of the institutions of the European Union. And most of them actually utilize all of the opportunities. So I think what was crucial during Croatia entering the European Union was basically to explain to young people what are the benefits, that they could be more mobile, they could connect with other young people, they could, do international projects. So this was all very important to explain to them and, to show them how many opportunities they could get. So I think we did a good job, and there is not as many skeptics as I would expect. But what is kind of a problem for Croatia is basically activism until now has not been a very popular word where, on one hand, if you say political participation, people think of, politicians with a lot of scandals. So they don't think as, political participation as something good for the community. And, on the other hand, you have this skepticism towards activism where, when you say the word activism, a lot of people think of, people who hug trees and they're vegans. So there's, a lot of different types of prejudice that we have to fight against. So this is still not really a thing that I'm perfectly in content with. So, I would really like for these things to improve and for young people to realize that, political participation is basically going out to vote. We have quite a low youth turnout on parliamentary, local elections, presidential elections, European elections, like whatever election there is, there's a low turnout. So I would like to, tell them that this is also something that's called political participation. Political participation is, posting a status update on Facebook about something that you are frustrated with. So I think we should explain that to them a little bit more, even during their education. But for the rest, I think like towards the European Union, I think we are in a very good place actually, and especially when comparing that to the rest of the countries. And for example, some friends I have from Serbia are currently kind of fighting to, encourage young people to be more less skeptic basically about the European Union and everything else. So I think when we compare to ourselves to some other countries that were in the same position as we are now, I think it's getting better. And of course, from the youngest generations, let's say like high schoolers who are now 15, 16, they're participating in these Erasmus projects, like it's something normal for them. When I was in high school, we didn't have as many. So I think they're starting to realize that life has a lot more opportunities than it did before.
Absolutely. And what about the country as a whole then? Not focusing on young people, but have you seen big changes in Croatia over the last, what is it now, 8 years?
Yeah, I think like skepticism kind of has been falling down before the pandemic happened. And then once we saw, the pandemic hit really hard, we saw, a lot of skepticism in general towards the government, towards any decision-making institutions on the level of, on the local level, national level, European level, like all the levels. But with the vaccine and all the measures and borders closing and everything else, a lot more people, like I would say older people, started to get kind of skeptic. Some are just conspiracy theorists, so this is why they became very skeptical. But also on the other hand, you have people who are not really believing that the European Union will protect us. So you have several types of people who are now kind of doubting the whole thing. I thought actually when UK kind of goes along with the Brexit, that there was going to be a lot of discussion about that in Croatia, but I haven't noticed as much discussion on Brexit and on whether we should follow with the same example or something like that. So I would say things are generally good. This pandemic has shaken things up, but we are very short term. So I think that once everything settles down a bit, we will still be trusting the institutions of the European Union.
Yeah, it's Croatia. I mean, geographically, Croatia is in a much more vulnerable location,
Yeah.
Close to, I mean, there must be pretty high levels of migration and everything like that. So I understand the skepticism. And also, I mean, it's only been 8 years in the EU.
Yeah.
And it's only been 30 years since all the chaos of the early 90s. So it's completely, I think the skepticism is understandable. But it's great to hear you say that it's not really there amongst young people, because that's how it
yeah
in general in the future.
I think that's a huge effort is coming from the NGO sector and the civil sector, with a lot of informal programs, projects which are actually connecting youth with the European Union and the values. For example, my NGO is also doing this project with the organization from Brussels, which is called Green European Foundation. We've been also working on projects to promote the European Union, promote the Greens, the group in the European Parliament. So, we've been doing a lot to work with young people and to show them what the benefits are. Of course, there's always going to be some skepticism, and we are still a very, very young country, although it's like older than me, but it's still very young in the political sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So focusing then back on your own work in Zagreb, I mean, it's clear to hear that you're excited about the results of the election. What changes do you want to see happen now in your city, and what do you hope to be able to do, and what sort of projects and work do you hope to be able to carry out with the new mayor?
Well, I definitely hope the civil sector will be a lot that we will have a lot more freedom to work on projects that we would like to work on, and that we will actually have some institutional support from the city of Zagreb, because in the previous eras, I would say now, we didn't have, I mean, only the certain organizations had, which kind of had the same values or worked with the current mayor and his people. So there was a lot of nepotism, a lot of unfair advantages towards some organizations. And we were kind of sad about it, because, I really like working transparently and working, for the community. And when you're just, an organization that has a tight relationship to the mayor, and this is the only reason why you are successful in your project, I don't think that's either like a good practice, but also I think it hurts the reputation of civil society in general. So I would like to see fair treatment, and for the city in general, I would like to see a lot more investment in education, in young people, especially in the infrastructure. So, you probably know that we were hit by a huge earthquake last year in March. But also we really felt the earthquake that was a little further away in December. So we have a lot of damage, and our city has practically not even moved one step since then. So, I expect a lot of efforts to be invested in, making sure that everybody has their own home now, and, that people can start living as before. And also I would really like to see some work being done towards just fighting corruption. I'm very interested in my own work as well, in fighting corruption, fighting for transparency, basically clearing up all the, spider webs that are currently active. So I really hope to see. I have a lot of, expectations from Tomislav Tomaszewicz and his team. But this is something I would like to see as a young person to, but also I would like to see Zagreb supporting other areas of Croatia, giving examples of good practice, because in Croatia, we also have this issue where Zagreb is a very centralized place and everything happens in Zagreb. All the opportunities for young people are in Zagreb. So I would like to see Zagreb taking the main role in strengthening the capacities of other cities as well. So yeah, this is something I would like to see.
Brilliant. They all sound like very good goals to have. And I think you're right to have a bit of have a lot of demands for this new mayor, because he sounds like an impressive man, and let's see if he can back up the reputation that comes with him. Yeah. I think we're going to leave it there. Thanks a million for joining me. That was really interesting. I've learned a lot about Croatia. I'm sure everyone else has too.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. We're going to leave it there so for today, and I'll just let everyone listening at home know that next week is Refugee Week, so we're going to have more articles, more podcasts, more interviews, and just a lot more going on next week to mark that occasion. Thanks again, Kaja. Take care.
Bye.